Hi and welcome back to the channel, and if you're new here, very big welcome to you, and don't forget to subscribe and share the videos if you haven't done so already. So today I'm going to, before I do all of that, in my previous videos I've been really talking about more of a kind of the psychology and could even say the psychology, the spiritual side of it, and the emotional side of things, and how we, in a sense, set ourselves up for success on this journey and lay the foundations for the things that are actually going to keep us going and serve us as we move forward. And as we know, I mean, don't need me to tell you this, but it pretty much a lot of it's up here. Some people say most of it's up here, but I'm not going to go down that road. It probably is, but who knows? A lot of it is. And once we get our mindset right and our emotions on board, and we get our divine sacred spirit downloading the information and the guidance that we need, and we're tuned into that. That's the most important thing, that we're able to really tune into that aspect of our being. I was listening to something very interesting by a scientist called Donald Hoffman. Now, he proposes this thing, I don't like the word, kind of simulation theory, but within that there's some very interesting stuff, and the idea that consciousness is primary, and this is kind of an amazing VR suit, for want of a better way of looking at it. And we have the privilege and the opportunity to experiment within this and this whole environment that is creating itself moment by moment by moment. So really what I'm looking to do here is weave some alchemy into the whole mix here, which I think is sadly missing from so much of this kind of the realm that talks about regeneration and this whole thing of anti-aging, which I've already said I really don't like. I'm talking about enhanced aging, not anti-aging. So the alchemy really comes in, and it's really poignant for this video. So, in this video, I'm going to get into the real actualization of things, and we're going to be talking about regenerating teeth and gums. And this story is particularly, poignant for me in so many ways. So I really wanted to kind of do this intro, because later on in the video, we're going to get into a bit more of a kind of presentation style of things. And, kind of within all of this, there's always a story in there. There's always a reason why we come to things. So the alchemy of all of this is actually turning something of kind of, you could say, a lower value, but I again, words fail to really describe this accurately. It's turning something of kind of a lower vibration maybe into something of a higher vibration, a higher state of being. So this is what we're exploring here, and this is what we're exploring in the context of our human experience. So let me just get into this now. So teeth and regenerating the gums, regenerating the teeth and gums. Now, there's a lot of videos out there about all kinds of things. And I don't know about you, but, in some ways, I'm a little bit tired of hearing about regenerating teeth and even kind of regenerating bodies and minds and stuff, from people that look like absolute, gods and goddesses, influencers that, their teeth look like fridge doors. And I'm like, well, yeah, okay. I mean, you've got almost from the get-go, you've got flipping perfect teeth. So, it doesn't look like you've got to, I mean, a lot of them are going to be veneers and all kinds of stuff done. But, anyway. So my story is really kind of, I don't want the little violins to come out on this or anything. This is kind of a genuine story. Back in the old days, I actually would have been really self-conscious about this whole thing, and really not wanted to do it. However, in my present, incarnation, I'm, I guess the word that really describes it, I don't even guess the word, the word that really describes it is that I'm intimately curious. So look at this whole thing. I've just got like, you could say a childlike curiosity as to what's possible and what can be done. And that curiosity really, moves me forward and gives me this incredible sense of excitement and possibility for this Trinity process, this whole thing. So it kind of just lights me up. That curiosity is so invigorating. Now, my tooth story starts, like I said, the fridge door thing, people with teeth like fridge doors, I actually started, if they've got a few like little tiles missing and, the odd crack in there in the bathroom mirror, my house is literally, my tooth house, if you want to use that metaphor, was actually like a pile of rubble. I mean, really. So going all the way back to the beginning of the story, the beginning, in the beginning. So I grew up I was a kid basically I was born in the 60s, and then, kind of the majority of my kind of early, tooth experiences kind of took place in the 70s. Now, when my milk teeth fell, I pretty much perfect milk teeth, no problems, never had an issue, no big deal. Everyone was like happy, wow, la-di-da-di-da. And subsequently, I did the 6 monthly trips to the dentist with my parents, all of that kind of stuff. And then when my adult teeth came through, shock horror, they came through like really crooked, literally all over the place. And like, I can remember like adults looking at my teeth and like, whoa, what's going on there? And I knew from a very early stage that this was not good. So, there is probably after the age of about, I am guessing now, probably about the age of 8 or 9, I am not smiling in any photo. I am not showing my teeth. All the school photographs never showed my teeth, nothing, never. There was like a huge thing about my teeth. And, just to make matters even worse, it was the 1970s when this kind of was unfolding. So 1970s dentists, God bless them, but really, my parents didn't, again, they did the best they could. They took me to the dentist. They listened to these people. Now, by the time I was, goodness, let me think. Probably by the time I was 11, I had more or less like 6 huge amalgam fillings. It just begs belief, really, doesn't it? I look at my daughter now, and she's got slightly gappy teeth, but they're perfect, absolutely perfect, not a single, and we're not like frantically going to the dentist or anything. So the information I'm going to share in this video will kind of give you an insight as to kind of how kind of archaic and kind of brutal things were back in the 70s. Now, they just drilled. I wasn't alone in this. Pretty much everyone that kind of grew up in the 70s, prior to that, even worse maybe. So, very early on, I had a mouthful of amalgam fillings. Oh my goodness. Nobody batted an eyelid. Then the dentist said to my parents, oh, the reason his teeth are all crooked and all over the place is that his mouth's too crowded. Now, there's a very interesting guy, and his name's Mew. I can't remember his first name, but he does this thing called mewing, where he takes people that are told that, and their teeth are all over the place, and he teaches them this technique called mewing, which which is basically, I mean, he does it with a piece of kind of chewing gum, which is a bit weird, but you know, you have to put that to one side. So it gets you to kind of just put a piece of chewing gum on the roof of your mouth and just use your tongue to kind of like roll it flat and then turn it into a ball, do the same thing again and again and again. You just do that as an exercise over a period of time, and it kind of realigns the jaw, and lo and behold, the teeth start to kind of reform themselves because the jaw opens up. And later on in the video, you'll find that there's a guy called Weston A. Price actually. And he did a huge amount of research, traveling all over the world. This was like yonks ago, ages ago. And he traveled to all these parts of the world with indigenous populations and was absolutely flabbergasted that they all had these amazing teeth, like literally amazing teeth, perfectly shaped jaws. And above and beyond that, you know, the really beautifully formed nasal passages. So not all this kind of mouth breathing, you know, breathe properly from the diaphragm. And we'll get into why that's important as well. So anyway, back to the 70s, the good old 70s. 70s Britain, London. Now, my dentist then said to my parents, to get back into the flow of the story, we need to take some teeth out. Oh, and you know, my poor mum and dad, of course, you know, they weren't like, you know, overjoyed about that, but you know, this guy was supposed to be the expert, and you know, they said, well, okay, you know, well, let's go ahead. So they then decided to take 2 teeth out from the side, which you can imagine at about, I think it was about 12 or 13, was like totally traumatic. So I had 2 teeth taken out, already lost 2 teeth. So not only did I have the amalgam fillings, I lost 2 teeth. So I took 2 teeth out, which didn't make, you know, did bugger all really, did absolutely nothing. And then he said, now we've taken the 2 teeth out, he's got the space and we can, you know, we can now fit braces on him. So, you know, fast forward years of braces, all these different kinds of braces I had. I had the ones with just the metal going across, and I had the ones with all these different, looked like jaws out of the film. I can't remember what it was now. It was Roger Moore, wasn't it, or something? Old James Bond film. All these like metal teeth, and went through years of that, and it sort of culminated with me breaking it because, you know, I was really active, doing loads of sports and stuff, and you know, I would try and take some of these braces out that would have fit in ones, and the amount of times like I put them in my pocket, and like, you know, I'd get home and, you know, they're all in pieces in my pocket. So in Britain in those days, you know, you kind of had, I mean, it's probably kind of more generous than it is now, maybe, I don't know, but you know, on this thing called the NHS, National Health Service, you kind of got 3 goes. And if you smashed this thing or it went wrong 3, you know, after 3 times, then your parents had to pay. So it got to the point where I'd smash these things up and they'd all come out, even the big metal ones had all sprung out, you know, because they're all done with elastic bands, and, you know, and me being kind of like completely sort of, you know, mega energized and active, always jumping on things and swinging upside down and racing around and doing all kinds of things, you know, literally these things. I mean, you know, I'd had so many lives on these things, and I think this kind of 1970s dentist, whose name was actually Mr. Wood, he was like really quite, you know, sort of a no nonsense kind of guy, and you know, I think he'd already given my parents like a few kind of let them off the hook a couple of times or something. But then it reached a point where he said, look, you know, I can't do this anymore. You're going to have to pay for it. And that was it for my dad. I mean, my dad, not only did he not want to pay for it, but, you know, he was annoyed with me for keep breaking the thing. So he said, okay, you kind of, you know, you've done it now. Now you're going to have to put some money in to get this stuff done yourself. So, there I can't remember what I was doing. I think I went and worked in a bike shop. I did all kinds of stuff, putting a little bit of money in. And eventually I got enough money to pay for the, kind of the cheap version of this, which was the wire just going across. I wish I'd never done that, looking back now. So anyway, I have the wire going across, and everyone's kind of thinking, okay, now we're back on the path again, blah blah blah. You've got to be really careful. And of course, when someone tells you to be really careful, it's like saying, it's to a kind of a young boy, child, is, it's kind of red rag to a bull, really, isn't it? So, basically, I'm out on my bike. We've got a ramp doing some huge, crazy stunt on bikes. I'm out with a bunch of friends. Over I go. Someone rides across my path just before I'm about to go over the ramp. I go over the ramp minus the bike and land flat on my face. And this lovely wire thing actually cuts through, like literally like a cheese cutter, cut through my side front tooth there. So I ended up with not just slightly less than half a tooth on that side. So if it wasn't bad enough already, I made it was even worse. So then after that, everyone just said, look, let's stop this. This is not, everyone was getting upset. I was annoyed. I was upset. And now I had half a tooth. So I basically did a year at school with half a tooth, with looking like I was, in London, we used to have these guys called meth drinkers that hang out at a place called Mile End, in a park. And there were people that got so far down, poor guys really, got so far down the road with alcoholism, they couldn't afford any drinks. So they used to drink methylated spirits. And, the whole thing, all their teeth used to go. So at some stage, I kind of started to look a bit like this, because with all the braces, I couldn't really brush my teeth properly. And it wasn't like today where you got all these nice little micro brushes and stuff like that. Didn't have anything like that. You just had, good old fashioned toothbrush with Colgate toothpaste. So none of this like rebuilding stuff or white, none of that. So anyway, so that I ended up with a lot of problems with my teeth. So where I'd worn these braces and I couldn't clean properly, I had a lot of problems with my gums all around the top of my teeth, really sore and inflamed. And then, this kind of went on, more amalgam fillings, all kinds of stuff going on. So when I was probably about a year after all this incident, like I'd gone a year without a tooth, the dentist then said, okay, we can put a crown on this thing here. And, God, he put a crown on it, but the crown was like complete, he was such a rough worker, no finesse in what he was doing. This crown was like yellowy. It's completely a different colour from my own teeth. So like, he didn't even have a mirror to show you. Like I came out of the dentist and like, I went into the waiting room that had a mirror. I remember looking at it and I was like, just ran back into it. I said, look, it's yellow. What I can't have this. I've got like a yellow tooth now. What? Looks like I'm, been 20 years on 50,000 cigarettes. What's going on? And he said, oh, it's too late. It's glued on now. We can't take it off. It's too dangerous. We might break the thing and all of that. So then I was stuck with this yellow tooth. And, this yellow tooth went on and on. And of course, the other side of the whole thing was that in order to kind of compensate for all this going on, I would just brush and brush and brush and brush my teeth in the old-fashioned way they used to tell you, brush sideways and all of that, not gently round the gum and all of that. None of that. So subsequently, not only did I have problems with my gums from the braces, but then I wore great loads of my bottom teeth away, and the gums, actually wore the gums away from overzealous brushing. So kind of far, I've just got some notes here just so I don't go completely off piste with this whole thing. So yeah, okay. So fast forward to when I was 31, so here I am working for the likes of David Bowie, all these in the music industry, going here, there and everywhere. And I've still got this flipping yellow tooth. I'm like, what's going on? So by this stage, I actually had the money to do something about this. And, it was just really time and energy and effort that I thought, eventually I got invited to David Bowie's birthday party in New York. Bit of a name drop there. And I thought to myself, these invites go out like a year in advance. And I thought, you know what, I've got to sort this out. This is this is a sort of Rubicon, this is kind of a liminal boundary that I must venture into to get to the other side of this. And, I still never smiled in any pictures or anything. So I then went to an orthodontist. I then went through a whole series of like hugely painful and uncomfortable reconstruction, like realigning my whole mouth and jaws and stuff like that, redoing this crown to make it look like it was more like my natural color. And I actually remember it didn't finish in time to go to the party. So I actually rocked up this was before people generally got this done. I actually rocked up in New York with like my wife and I went there, and I had all these braces, but I'd actually elected to get these different colored ones that you could get. And so like, I just got so much attention. It was like, wow, everyone going, wow, what we, and of course there was this, musician called Goldie who had all the gold teeth, and I had like colored teeth before that kind of hip hop artist sort of doing all of this. But so anyway, all of that done. However, within all of that, I still had these like real problems with my gums, and I'd had a lot of damage to my teeth. Oh, by the way, the other thing that I had done whilst all this was going on, the reconstruction stuff, I had the amalgam fillings removed. So I said, look, I want all these, because all of this stuff about amalgam fillings, the toxicity, the lead, mercury that's in these things, leaching into your system, etc., etc., etc. And I paid like crazy amount of money to go to a holistic dentist to get them properly done, and all these kind of tubes draining things out, and oxygen going in to stop the mercury vapor being breathed in. I don't know whether it did any good, but anyway, they were all taken out, cleaned out, and like proper white fillings put in place. So I had all that done. So finally I could, after it was 2 years, it took 2 years, and these things came off. And of course I had all the proper little brushes this time to go around everything. And I even traveled around India and Nepal and took all these little brushes with me and stuff like that. And it was a different experience, very painful and uncomfortable at times, but totally different. I was moving towards something. I felt good about it. So after this, I was still faced with the problem of having the gums, like, my gums were worn away, very, very severely in some areas. And every time I would go to the dentist, they would say, you've got to be careful with your brushing. It didn't matter how careful I was, it always seemed to, they always said the same thing. So just so you know that wherever you're at with this now, I'm not someone who's telling you that's got fridge door teeth, how to get perfect teeth. I'm on a journey to regenerate and rejuvenate and, do what I can with what I've got. Now, I don't know, maybe some point in the future I might say, well, look, you know what, I'm just going to get them all veneered, and I'm just going to have this like lovely, perfect smile and all of that kind of stuff. And that's all well and good. But even if you do that, you still got to make sure that you've got a healthy mouth, that what they're putting the veneers on are actually, you've got proper things going on. The roots are healthy, your gums are healthy. You don't want to pay thousands of dollars and pounds or whatever, get loads of veneers, and then all your teeth fall out anyway. So, what we're looking to do here, what I'm looking to do, oh, and by the way, I'm just sharing my experience here. I'm not I'm not telling you you should do any of this. I'm not recommending that you do any of this. You know, kind of just for the record, you know, this is my experience and what I'm doing. So I'm just sharing what I'm doing. Okay, so you take away from it what you feel is valuable, and you make your own experiments and do your own research and consult an expert, obviously, before you take anything on that you're not sure about. So this is where I'm coming into, and the next part of the video will really be me going through what I'm doing, but not only what I'm doing, but actually why I'm doing it. Because it's all very well, you know, giving you a list of stuff and saying, well, you know, I'm doing this, 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 and that, whatever. And if we kind of look at, you know, even what Brian Johnson's putting forward, you know, the guy who's trying to become 18 again, a billionaire entrepreneur, Brian Johnson, now become, you know, pretty famous for all of the stuff that he's doing, etc., etc. Now I've got a joke with a few of my friends that, you know, I'm on this one, I'm actually going beyond Johnson. So I'm not sure I am, because I think he's had gum grafts and stuff like that. I haven't had anything like that. I really want to see this process of alchemy. I really want to explore what can be done from this kind of, you know, how can I turn the lead into gold? What can I do with what I've got? Not with, you know, down the line. I want to work with what I've got now and see what can happen. Now, I've been involved, what I'm going to share with you, I've been involved in doing it for a while now. And I have to say that genuinely, I'll show you some pictures. I mean, they're not brilliant pictures. They're kind of the best I could do. They're taken at different times of day. I haven't like suddenly grown a third set of teeth and everything's perfect. What I'm seeing is a gradual, consistent improvement in things and a sense of regeneration. So there's definitely something happening there. Now, just to also kind of just set this off before we go into the other part of the video, I have actually been to the dentist and asked him about what's going on with my teeth. And, you know, really, in a sense, since I had all of that reconstructive work done and all of that stuff, I've had no cavities at all. So that's 30 years now, I've had no cavities. So it's quite funny that, so that side is, I'm not coming to you saying I've had loads of cavities and they're all healing up and everything. I have had no cavities that have been detected at all for 30 years, which is quite interesting, because like the first 11 years, I had like nothing but cavities. So, you know, what's all that about? So this is the entry point into this. And this is what fascinates me, is what can we do with the materials that we've got? Because it's all very well, if you've got fantastic DNA, you've got these incredible physiques, you've got incredible teeth, you know, everything's perfect, your skin's perfect, you know, that's great. But I'm not coming from that angle. I'm like, well, you know, how can I weave some alchemy with what I've got now? And I have to say, and I'll show you the photographs and you can see for yourself, that there has definitely been a regeneration of my gums. Small, but noticeable. There's also been a significant decrease in sensitivity, because obviously when you wear your gums away, you expose parts of the root of the tooth or the lower part of the tooth, and this can cause sensitivity. And I've had quite a lot of sensitivity probably for the last 3 or 4 years, and obviously the cold weather in England doesn't help. It makes my teeth even more sensitive. So this is the kind of the framework. I really just wanted to give you this so you understand where I'm coming from. So when you see what I'm up to and what I'm doing and the results that I'm getting, you can put this in the right context. So I'm not telling you this is going to grow you, like I said, like a third set of teeth. I'm not telling you this is going to solve all your problems or all your issues, whatever they may be. Maybe you don't have any, you just want to upgrade, just want to make them even better than they already are. Your teeth are better than they already are. Now that's up to you. I'm just, like I said, I'm just telling you what I'm doing. Now, what you're going to discover in the information that I share is that some really interesting facts about teeth and about why teeth degenerate and the gums degenerate. That once I started diving into this, I really discovered some interesting stuff. And it's stuff that's just not on general, it's quite tricky to get this actually. It's not everywhere. And there's a few surprises in there too. Few things that really surprised me and few interventions that you can make that seem really simple. They cost pretty much nothing. And they are things that have what I would term a pretty significant impact on the general health of our mouth. And now, as it's often said that, there's a saying, disease starts in the mouth. And really when we, even like, for example, even if I don't end up, totally like regenerating all my teeth and gums, what I will end up with, and I'm pretty convinced about that, is a very healthy state of affairs in my mouth. And that sets you up for good health. There's a lot of evidence now to suggest that poor oral health can lead to all kinds of other things like hypertension, even heart disease, even in some extreme cases, cancers, all kinds of stuff. It's a bit like if you start to trace the root back to the beginning, the origin of things, often the origin can be found in the simple thing of the mouth. So don't underestimate the potential of working on your oral health and your oral vitality. It's very important, it's very significant, and you will experience some absolutely positive results in terms of your health and your overall well-being, come what may. So that's really what we want. We're upgrading and we're enhancing, and that's the alchemy and the magic. But also in the process, along the way, in the journey, what you're going to come away with is you're going to be enhanced. There's going to be an upgrade generally just as a result of doing certain things. And why not do them? Because as you will discover, these things are super affordable. There is nothing in my entire protocol that most people can't afford to put at least, I would say 2/3 of them into operation almost immediately and start seeing the benefits of those. So without further delay, let's get into the next part of the video. And of course, I'll see you on the other side. So welcome to the second part of this presentation. And you know what, I thought, I've been competing with a lawnmower and a police siren. So if you hear something in the background, it could be that. So I thought what I'd do is I'd kind of give you the punchline before we get into the rest of it, because if I make you wait, this whole thing of trying to lure people and coax people into waiting to the end of the video, I'm not going to bother with that. So I thought I'd just start off with the punchline. What have my results been? So what you're looking at here is, they're not the best photographs. I think they're taken at different times of the day. But I've done the best I can to show you what's going on. And, if you hadn't gone completely catatonic, mind you, I probably, made you 30 minutes younger, just suspended you in animation with my tooth story before all this. But if you were following that and you kind of see where I kicked off from and what was going on, like I was saying, that a lot of these people showing stuff kind of, they've got a tiny crack in the tile on the roof, but I was really starting from a pile of rubble, maybe worse, not even a foundation dug or something, So after 3 months of the kind of protocol I'm going to be taking you through, I'm kind of not, I'm seeing some results. I mean, it's not like I'm growing a third set of teeth. It's not, it's nothing like super spectacular at this stage, but this is 3 months in. And, you can probably see that, the bottom teeth, there's some real problem areas, like the bottom front teeth. I mean, I'd kind of worn that all the way down, and that was really, really bad and super sensitive from time to time. And, I'd even discussed with my dentist, doing a gum graft on that. And, we were kind of thinking about it, and, and then you can see on the left where that crown, I mean, I had that redone. That was when I had all my mouth kind of restructured when I was about 31. And there was a lot of work done in there and a lot of restructuring. I had to really get all my bite realigned, the whole thing. It was a big deal. And I had all these amalgam fillings taken out, like I said before. So really what we're looking at here is, I'm not sure, it's not, you can't see it so well, but where that crown was, I had a lot of gum wear around that and recession. So the gum had gone up past that crown and just revealing, because it was an old crown. Now I think is it called zirconian or something like that? It's probably something out of Star Trek, probably got it wrong. But anyway, the point is that now you don't tend to get that dark thing. That's kind of the metal that's part of the crown showing through. But, it's not great. And, again, who knows? I might end up just going for the fridge doors in the end and sort of saying, well, look, I'm just going to get all my teeth veneered and, have the Hollywood smile or whatever. However, like in terms of the alchemy, I'm just trying to make this into something that is kind of a fascinating journey to see what can be done. Now, the thing that I have noticed, and this is what's come through from my dentist, actually, it's not, it's direct from the horse's mouth, as if it were. So I said to him, what's the kind of state of my gums? And he said to me that, well, look, other than the wearing them away, your gums are kind of like, really healthy. They're really, really healthy. So the current state of affairs is that my gums are very, very healthy. There's no gingivitis. There's no bleeding of the gums, nothing like that. They're nice and plump, full of blood, whatnot. So kind of good news on that front. And, my teeth, he said, other than them maybe not being that great a colour, like they don't look like fridge doors. They kind of look like sort of maybe a 59-year-old guy's teeth that's been through life a bit. And, I'm working on that too. So this process of remineralizing is, I feel, having an effect. My teeth actually feel quite, a little bit, it's a feeling thing. My teeth actually feel stronger. I feel more robust. Now, I don't know whether I'm just imagining that or whether that is actually something happening, but for sure, there is some regeneration, there is some regrowth there. And, really it's starting to become visible and noticeable. And like I said, especially those bottom teeth, which were, kind of pretty dreadful from, where I kicked off from before. So, you get to see that what I'm sharing here, it may not be like sort of spectacularly different. However, there is some form of regeneration happening. So it's telling me that, this isn't a complete flipping waste of time and effort, and there is something going on, and it's worth continuing, it's worth pursuing just to see how much or how far I can go with this. Now, what I'd love to do is to grow those parts of the worn out gum back, so you kind of get that whole bit growing back at the bottom. And then, you know, I'm probably going to get that crown redone on the left there at some point, because that it does need redoing. It's well overdue. It's pretty old now, and you know, I think but you know, in a way, it's probably not worth getting it done now until I've kind of gone down this road a little bit further, and then we'll see where we're at. So, you know, just generally, I feel like the state of my mouth and teeth has and is improving, you know, quite a lot in terms of the overall health. Now, you know, you just have to judge for yourself and see what you think. So I'm just presenting it as it is thus far, and I'm not trying to kind of big it up or anything. So, you know, you can just see where I'm at, and we'll take it on, and I will now I'll go through what I'm doing, and what, you know, importantly, why I'm doing it, because, you know, there's good reason why I'm on the kind of protocol that I'm on. And you'll probably, like I said before in the intro, it's kind of gone beyond Johnson in a way. I mean, I think he's probably had some gum grafts actually, so maybe I haven't gone beyond him. But certainly in terms of my day-to-day protocol and what I'm taking on, I'm doing more than him. And the reason I'm doing more than him is that I'm kind of looking at this from a slightly broader perspective. And of course, I haven't got all of the team of experts kind of constantly monitoring what's going on. I'm literally just doing it myself. I'm looking at the results, I'm feeling the results, and, you know, now I'm showing those to you. So, you know, I've got another however many it is that watch this pair of eyes on the case now. So, okay, so there we are. Let's move on from that. So now you can sort of see, I mean, going back, you know, like after years of braces, the 1970s, I've put dental interventions, but it should be dental interventions there to change the slide. So, you know, as you can see, you know, these were actually the molds after I'd been like years with braces. And, you know, just to add insult to injury, on the left there where that gap is, I even smashed the mold that I was supposed to keep safe. So, you know, not great. But my orthodontist, who, you know, I kind of trusted, he this is the one later one, not the 1970s one. You know, he sort of moved things around, and he radically restructured my whole bite and whatnot. So it really means, you know, it means a lot to do that, because it means that you're kind of, you're not grinding your teeth down, because I was also grinding my teeth down at the back, which didn't help either. But as you can see, you know, it was a real mess. I didn't start this journey from anywhere good at all. So yeah, good to just kind of shove that in so you can see what was going on back then. So you kind of really, what we're looking at here is alchemy, you know, the ability to utilize and muster the resources to rebuild and reinvent. Now I call that living alchemy. So this is, I've already given you the punchline, but the question kind of is, can your teeth and gums actually regrow, rebuild, and remineralize? Now this is a question that, you know, before I started on this journey, I was like really asking this question, and I looked around a lot, and most of the conventional way of looking at things was telling me that wasn't possible, that you can't really put back things, you know, once the damage reaches a certain point, you can't do that. But I'm not really interested in what they're telling me I can't do. I'm interested in creating this idea of living alchemy, you know. So let's just get into a little bit what's happening, you know. So your teeth, in fact, remineralize every single day. So this whole thing about, you know, stripping away, you're going to end up with no minerals is not true. So if they didn't do that, you actually wouldn't have any teeth. Yeah. So what we're really looking to do in terms of teeth, and we'll come on to gums, is we're looking to boost the remineralizing and rebuilding process. And we're looking to do that every single day. And the question is, we should kind of know this, and people say this to us, you're eating too much. What actually causes cavities? And, you might be surprised to discover that a great diet and really good dental habits are actually not enough. So all this thing we're told, you've got to brush your teeth twice a day and after meals and all of that. And, looking around and over the years, up until my present dentist, which I really, really like, and you've got a lot of respect for him, and he's super kind of onto what the new ideas that are coming through and really into it, and absolutely not into kind of drilling teeth for no good reason if you can, spend a bit of time and do something about it. However, I've been like super shocked at all the advice I've got over the years and how many people just absolutely don't know what I'm about to share with you. So the causes. So really what are the causes? It's pretty simple actually. So it's weak teeth plus high levels of oral bacteria. Now that equals cavities. It also has an impact on gum disease and gum recession. Yeah, so that you'll see how this whole process, one thing feeds into the other and, kind of one exacerbates the other. So when we look at that equation above, weak teeth plus high levels of oral bacteria equal cavities, then really the reason leads directly to the solution. So what we're looking for is strong teeth and low levels of bacteria, and they lead to a reversal of oral problems. So that's the idea. And when we start to look at all of this a little bit more deeply, we can see that this idea of health begins in the mouth is sort of super important. And, how we're not really led down this path of looking at where the origins of a lot of our poor health is. And again, I'm going to suggest that it's because people don't know, and, oral health in a way we can look at as a window to your overall health, and a lot of scientists, science, all of that stuff, if we could, whatever we can believe and whatever we can take away from that, there's some brilliant scientists out there, some really cool people, and they're discovering, the roots of so many health conditions lead all the way back to the mouth. And these include things like even heart disease, cardiovascular disease. And, it's so overlooked, this, this correlation between disease and oral health. It's so seldom examined. It's always shocking to see. So the mouth is a mixture of good and bad bacteria. So problems occur when there's too much bad bacteria, too many bad bacteria. Now the bad bacteria are the culprit. And how does this play out basically? Good and bad bacteria stay in the mouth after a meal. The bad bacteria eat the sugars and then excrete a kind of acid. Then that acid actually breaks down the enamel and causes cavities, and it causes all sorts of other things going on as well. And then we come on to gum disease, and these kind of interesting words, periodontal disease, and I've got down here the devil relating to or affecting the structures surrounding and supporting the teeth. And now this is also caused by a buildup of bacteria along the gum line. And of course, too much of that bad bacteria also offsets the pH of your mouth, supports this plaque buildup, that sort of horrible stuff that, like concrete, brown concrete that builds up on the backs of your teeth and stuff like that. And, you see so often people just leave this, they're not taking care of it. And if it's left unchecked, this infects the tissues surrounding the base of your teeth, and then on and on and on it goes. Now, the other thing which I'm very linked into, and what I've spoken about in detail, is this idea of overzealous brushing. And this, this goes all the way back to when I was first told how to brush my teeth, completely the wrong way, scraping the brush from side to side. And, add to that the whole way that I was like so embarrassed about my teeth that I thought, well, you know what, at least if I can make them really clean and, sparkling clean, then it might compensate for how, kind of out of shape they all are. And in doing that, it's kind of, no matter how much you do the wrong thing, it's never going to turn into the right thing. So, this is a whole series of events, and so many people are involved, kind of find themselves in this kind of loop, this kind of vicious circle in a way. So the mouth is colonized by 300 to 700 bacteria species. And I guess that depends on a lot of different things, what culture you come from, what diet, what you're eating on a daily basis. So the thing that we need to understand is that there's only a very small amount of these bacteria that are responsible for cavities and decay and, the problems that we're going to face with our gums. So then we get to, which ones, which are the ones that we need to really think about, and what, that we can, it's not that we just have to disregard all the rest of them, but, it's that these are the actual culprits, the main culprits. These are the ones that, have the gun in their hand when you turn up on the crime scene. So the first one is called Streptococcus mutans. What a lovely name. Who thinks up all this crud? All these crazy names. And what you'll just see is that all these things kind of like look pretty much the same. And, the descriptions of them, they're called anaerobic, which means it's not oxygen, and it's the thing called gram positive, which is that stuff that they used to give, they might probably still do, give children to kind of make sure they brush their teeth properly, and it stains the teeth where the bacteria are. So these respond to that and show up on those particular tests. So that's the first one. And then the second one is Streptococcus subrinus. I think that's how you say it. Again, another gram positive, so it shows up on all of those things. And there's some lovely terms for it. I won't bother going into all of that. They're kind of basic things that cause a lot of damage. And and then the third kind of suspect with a smoking gun on the scene is what we could call various lactobacilli. So these are kind of bacteria rod-shaped bacteria that produce they produce kind of lactic acid. So they're kicking out acid, and that's a product of fermentation. So this idea of fermentation, which crops up a lot in terms of health issues and disease and all kinds of stuff, that when there's not enough oxygen in the mix, then this idea of things starting to ferment. And so lactic acid, it's a chemical your body produces when your cells break down carbohydrates. So if you think about our diet, how many carbohydrates does the average sort of Western diet contain? Some of them, it's like, I know some people that more or less just eat carbs, breakfast, lunch and dinner. So it's often referred to as lactate. Now, this is kind of a natural thing. So muscle cells and red blood cells make the most lactic acid, but it can come from any tissue in your body. Yeah. So most people think of lactic acid in their muscles during a tough workout, they're not necessarily thinking about these kind of bacteria in your mouth producing it. And that's the thing that, so it's not the sugar that, destroys your teeth, your enamel. It's the acid that the things that eat the sugar excrete. So it's good to get that straight. So out of all of these, which one's the most destructive? So it turns out that Streptococcus mutans is the most destructive. So this is like the kind of world champion boxer out of the whole lot. This is the one that's going to like really screw our teeth up the most. Now, the really good news is that, kind of you can kill this Streptococcus mutans pretty easily if you know what you're up to. And, after looking around a lot and also reading a lot of kind of studies about stuff and listening to a lot of really good people that have fantastic information out there. And I'll see if I can share some of their stuff in the description if I've kept it safe and sound. But, if I don't credit you, whoever you are, thank you so much. You guys, just anyone who's sharing this kind of information is doing the world a service, really. So the thing that really does kill them is coconut oil, and probably not the kind of rough and ready coconut oil that a lot of supermarket, average supermarket, but I'm talking about like raw, organic, unfiltered, not, just completely raw, proper coconut oil, organic. And, this is kind of what I'm doing. So I'm giving you the kind of reasons why things happen, and then I'm going to tell you what I'm doing. Now, obviously, with everything, I'm not telling you what to do. You have to do your own research. You have to make your own mind up. You make your own experiments. You see what works for you. I'm just telling you what I'm doing. And, before I've shown you where I'm at, I've shown you what's happened. Like I said, I haven't ended up with a kind of fridge door teeth, these perfect, wonderful teeth yet. And, I'm actually not looking for that either. I just want like really good, strong, healthy teeth and gums that are going to last me a long time, that I'm not going to have to. And like I said, even if push comes to shove and I did end up, having some real cosmetic work done where I get my teeth veneered or something like that, you've still got to make sure that your mouth's really healthy and these things are going on, good, sturdy foundations. You don't want to pay all that money and then they just end up dropping out at the end of it all. So I'm doing this thing called oil pulling. So oil pulling is an ancient Ayurvedic medical practice. And, really, these people were not stupid. No matter how much they try and rubbish this stuff, if you actually do look at the research, you'll discover how effective coconut oil is at killing this Streptococcus mutans. It's very, very effective. And actually, I think there's a load of studies out there. I'm not going to share all these studies, but you can go and look it up for yourself. A lot of these studies point out that just raw organic coconut oil, doing oil pulling with this, is actually as effective, if not more effective, than all the medical, like pharmaceutical things that tell you that they're going to do the same thing. So what I'm doing, I use 2 teaspoons of raw organic coconut oil and I swish that around in my mouth for 20 minutes twice a day. Now, you might think that's kind of a rigmarole, and you're not wrong. It is a rigmarole. But the thing is that, also having kind of like uncomfortable teeth and problems with your gums and all of this kind of stuff, that's an even bigger bloody rigmarole. So, 20 minutes a day with a bit of oil in, swishing it around, and you just swish it around, you get on with something else. So I do that twice a day. Do that in the morning, do that when, I get up, make a cup of tea, because, I have to do school runs and all of that kind of thing. So I kind of just factor it in and get up and give myself enough time to do that in the morning. And then, no matter how tired, this is kind of, it's kind of non-negotiable. No matter how tired I am, no matter where I'm at, even if I'm out, if I'm away, I do this. I do this anyway. Take coconut oil with me, and I do that. Now, just a word here. If you are going to try this for any reason, do not spit this into your sink or toilet, as eventually you'll end up with a great big solid, it actually goes solid coconut oil. So just spit it into the rubbish bin. So, that's just a little bit of a word of warning for your home DIY people that don't want to end up with a big blob of oil in your bog. Now, again, on to what I'm doing. The other thing that really kills this main culprit are essential oils. Now, we could go through a lot of things about this, but the thing that you really need to understand, I think you really need to get your head around, is this thing called biofilm layers. Now, these are the things that these sneaky little things, bacteria, hide themselves in. And it kind of, just like the Ayurvedic people of history weren't stupid, and they kind of really understood what the issue was way back then. And we've kind of fallen into the situation where our modern practices and science kind of want to sell us a load of products and keep us going back and forwards to them constantly, not telling us that actually, people, ancient civilizations understood the problem, and as we'll come into with the presentation, actually didn't have to deal with all the dental issues that we've got in our culture. So in many ways, what happened was, we've kind of gone backwards in terms of a lot of things when we start to look at, way back in history. So without sort of going through the endless amounts of kind of essential oils that will work, the top 5 of these are coriander, rosemary leaf, broomweed, oregano, and cinnamon. Now, studies say that it takes 1 hour to get, using these essential oils, to get a 63 to 66% reduction. So, I mean, there's loads of figures about this, and, I've just presented you with a way to kind of get round a little bit all of this, the time needed to swish around with this. So basically, if you were to do 20 minutes a day over a week, you get 2 hours 30 minutes, which in that week's time is enough to kind of do the job. Now, with the oils themselves, you kind of don't want to overdo them, because like the oils actually, they can burn a little bit. And this is why you use the coconut oil, because the coconut oil is actually a carrier oil, and it really does, using the two together. So what I would do is maybe I would do a week with just using the coconut oil with the essential oils together, and then swishing around with that morning and night. And then I would do a week off, with just using coconut oil. So you don't, the important thing is here, you don't want to kill off everything, a bit like antibiotics do. They just wipe everything out. So you don't want to wipe everything out. You don't want to kill off all the good bacteria as well. And if you overdo it, that's what you're running the risk of, because some of that bacteria is actually really good stuff, and you want those guys in there. You don't want to just like blitz the whole lot. So by alternating, so you're doing like a week of using the essential oils, and you just choose which ones you prefer. I prefer oregano and cinnamon. I don't know why, I just like that, and they seem to work for me. And I use the coconut oil as a carrier oil, so just put a few drops of the essential oils onto the coconut oil, mix it in a little bit, put it in my mouth, and then it kind of just all goes into, it melts in your mouth. If you live in the northern climate, I live in the UK, so it's certainly not often do you find that coconut oil is liquid here, whereas when I was living in Bali, it was always liquid. So a whole different story. So basically, you're just really putting that oil on the coconut oil and putting it in your mouth, and then that's it. It's pretty simple. I mean, there's no rocket science here. So the point here also is that you've got to watch out. So you're doing that morning and night. You've also got to watch out what's going on during the day and just kind of pay a little bit of attention to that. Yeah. So this is the other thing that I'm doing. So this is what I'm doing. And again, you have to have a think about that and experiment with it. So we're coming on 3 other things. So after a meal, I swish with water and a few drops of colloidal silver. So colloidal silver is kind of known. And again, a lot of kind of medical, conventional science has kind of tried to trash things like colloidal silver and said, oh, it doesn't do anything. And you do the research yourself. I'm not going to get into that argument, but this is just what I do. So I just sloosh my mouth around with a bit of colloidal silver, because as far as I'm concerned, it plays a role in inhibiting bacteria and, just stops that process and slows it down. And it also seems to help. I've noticed it does calm things down a little bit around the gum area. So it's helped me to sort of, in a way, kind of neutralize some of that inflammation that I've had in my gums. And it's a kind of soothing feeling when you're doing it. So do that after a meal. Now, morning and night, I do floss as well. And the other thing that I was going to just throw into the mix here, the other thing that I've added to this, which I actually haven't got into the presentation, is a water pick. Now, a water toothpick. This has kind of been a little bit of a game changer. I'd highly recommend you getting one. They're not expensive. I think I paid maybe £40 for mine, $35 or something like that. And it just squirts a jet. It's got different settings on it. And it just squirts a jet of water, very thin little jet of water, to like a toothpick. So you just pick stuff out of your teeth with water, which is great. So I use that as well. I do floss. I try not to over floss, because I find that sometimes you can sort of end up cutting through the gum a little bit if you're not too careful. So you have to be very careful with that. Excuse me. And I use a little bit every so often of Lugo's iodine in that kind of flossing. So I just sloosh that around my mouth, and then I do the flossing. So I don't do that all the time. I do that from time to time. I use the iodine from time to time. What I do every single day, morning and night, is that I use a tongue scraper. Now, the tongue collects a whole, it's kind of an elimination organ in a way. So, if you've ever used a tongue scraper, you might be shocked at all the stuff that actually, this kind of gunk that comes off your tongue when you wake up in the morning, and when you go to bed at night. I mean, it's pretty wild stuff sometimes. And the more I've done this, I've been tongue scraping for quite some time now, and I've noticed that my tongue, the health of my tongue seems a lot better. Not that it was ever particularly bad, but I've just noticed that, just the general look and feel of my tongue, it looks very healthy and it feels nice. And, depending on how kind of anal you are with this kind of stuff, I mean, I'm a little bit like that. Actually, no, I'm a lot like that. But, some people say use copper. So get a copper tongue scraper. I've got both. I've got a stainless steel one and I've got a copper one. So the copper one, they say, because it's antibacterial. And I think there's some other school of thought that says that it's also kind of good for the, kind of an electrical charge to the tongue as well. It's, copper's an electrical conductor. I'm not entirely sure about that, so I won't wax lyrical too much about that whole side of things. But so then, we've got our three things there. We've got our colloidal silver, we've got the iodine, and we've got the tongue scraper. So that is part of that regime. Now, the other thing that I did pick this up from Brian Johnson, obviously the creator of Blueprint, reversing aging and all of that kind of stuff. Now, he was using on his Blueprint list coenzyme Q10, and he was using the gel. Now, I'm using a spray. Couple of reasons, probably because I'm too lazy to do all my research and pay through the nose to get the gel. I couldn't actually find a really good gel that had good reviews and was recommended. So he doesn't actually, in fact, I might go back and have a look. He doesn't seem to be saying what Q10 gel it is. There's no link when I looked. Maybe he's put one in now. So Q10 is one of those things that it's found in almost every cell in the body, and it's a powerful antioxidant, and it fights against the damage, antioxidants damaging the parts of the body, and it kind of neutralizes and fights against free radicals, which we know, we've heard this. I don't know why they call them free radicals, because like being free and radical sounds quite good to me, but they've kind of indoctrinating us not to be free and radicals. No, that's a bad thing. But anyway, these things that they've termed free radicals, that's what Q10 deals with, or helps to deal with. And those things obviously damage cell membranes, and they mess around with our DNA. So there's all kinds of things that if you can add to the mix and add something again that's sort of got a little bit of a punch to it to help you along the way. Now, I just literally spray this on my gums and teeth after I brush my teeth morning and evening. So that's just another thing that I'm doing. So now we come on. Okay, so that's really looking at how you deal with the bacteria. Now, I'm sure there's many other things you can be doing, but of course, we've only got so many hours in the day, and this is what I've found. This, I'm dedicated to this, and I can do it. A lot of people will just say, "Oh my goodness, this is all too much. I can't do it." So my advice on that level would be to say, look, do what you can, do as much of it as you can, and monitor the results for yourself. See how you get along with it. And my way of looking at it is that once you start on this journey, then it becomes a lot of fun. So this idea of enhanced aging and kind of living alchemy, turning the things that you've got, the things that might be a little bit of a lower vibration in terms of the quality that they are kicking out, how to really transform those into something of a higher quality. So we're enhancing ourselves. We're involved in the process of enhancement, enhanced aging, not anti-aging, enhanced aging. So if we can say that, we've taken some pretty good steps to deal with the bacteria. Now, the other side of the equation, strong teeth and, healthy and low bacteria, not healthy bacteria. So low levels of the bad bacteria and strong teeth. Well, what makes strong teeth? Let's look at this a little bit. So, and also strong teeth and healthy gums. This is kind of like the end result we were looking for. So to create the regenerative alchemy, we need to have both of those on board. We need to really have those two factors playing out. Strong teeth and low bacteria. So let's have a look and see what are teeth made of. So when you look into it, they're essentially bones. So okay, that's interesting. They kind of look a bit like bones, don't they? But in this sort of coloration a little bit. but they are kind of basically bones, which is kind of a bit weird, isn't it, in a way that you've got bones in your mouth. And they are made up of 76 minerals and trace minerals. So that's what makes up your bones. And really there's 12 major minerals and 64 trace minerals. So we could ask, like, all right, what are these 12 minerals that are kind of the major ones? And we've got boron, calcium, chromium, iron, magnesium, manganese, phosphorus, potassium, selenium, sulfur, and zinc. So those are the things that we really need to concentrate on. And I'm going to just kind of take a little bit of a divergent thing here in terms of making strong teeth, because there's all kinds of clues along the way, and people that have actually done a lot of research into this whole thing and understood it way before we really got to where we're at now with stuff, which, you know, in some respects, you know, kind of people want to lead you down the path of spending huge amounts of money on, you know, repair work and regenerate, you know, cosmetic stuff and what, all of that kind of stuff. Now, I'm not necessarily against that. You know, if you've got something that you really don't like, then good for you. You know, this is kind of why I'm in this game. You know, I don't want to end up sort of decrepit. You know, I would love to sort of, kind of, as they say, a bit like shamans, you know, they die dancing. So, you know, this is kind of what we're looking for. It's not necessarily, you know, wanting to live to 200, although if you could live to 200 or even 120 in good health and full of vitality, then why not go for it? But really, we're looking for the life in our years, not the years in our life, you know. So we want to be really present. We want to be fully energized. We want to be able to participate in life and fully enjoy life. Now, there's one figure that keeps coming up whenever I'm looking at sort of this idea of regeneration and building strength and basically rejuvenating. And it's this guy called Weston A. Price. And he basically, you can see the book there, it's called Nutrition and Physical Degeneration. Now, he was a Canadian dentist, and there's lots of good and not so good things written about him. So I'm not going to go into him as a person. It's more about what he was looking at. And, you know, in the context of when he was looking at this, then, you know, there's all kinds of things that were going on then that we don't really, you know, that wouldn't be acceptable today in our current culture. So, and rightly so too. So anyway, he was looking at the relationship between nutrition, dental health and physical health. And he discovered some pretty remarkable things, that when he went to visit these, you know, kind of tribal cultures, went all over the world, actually, it's crazy kind of stuff. When he rocked up at these places, what he discovered was that the people there had absolutely, even though they'd never ever seen a toothbrush, they'd never seen toothpaste, they'd never had, you know, they'd never had Listerine mouthwash, nothing like that. And, you know, no dentists, nothing at all. They had absolutely amazing teeth and oral hygiene and beautifully shaped jaws, wonderful nasal passages, you know, were able to breathe beautifully through their nose, their nasal passage. And the other thing, that if you look at that picture there, you know, the old people, in inverted commas, were strong and fit and healthy and able to not only, you know, father children and mother children, you know, well into, you know, way past the years that you'd think would be possible in our culture. But they were out there, you know, hunting, running, competing, fooling around with the younger generation, just, as if kind of, time had sort of almost not stood still, but, it was kind of like, they could participate. They were strong. And I saw this, if you look at a lot of the older population, the very older population of Indonesia, seen these people, and other parts of the world where I've traveled, the older population are really strong. They're lean, and, they have very youthful physiques and, pretty good. I mean, some of them like smoke like chimneys as well, and they're still fit and super strong. So this is one of the things that he noticed. And the kind of weird thing about all of this was that he then kind of started comparing. I mean, there was lots of incidences where, particular populations were divided and up by, like through a territory. And one part of that territory, was more westernized than the other. And he discovered, looking at people's, even like, people that were related. There was a famous one of two twins that came from a particular island. I can't remember, it's just off the coast of Scotland. I can't remember what it was called now. But, one brother was, one brother sort of went more towards the mainland where they had a Western style. And his other brother, the other twin, ate the native diet. And one more or less had loads of rotten teeth, misaligned stuff, and the other one had perfect teeth. So there's clues in there, the kind of the Western diet, all of these soft carbohydrates and foods that we'll come on to it, why this is in a little bit. But basically, it's good to just bear in mind at this stage that, as we were saying at the beginning of this, doing all the right stuff that you're told to do won't necessarily do the job of making your teeth, regenerating your teeth and gums. So there's a few clues that we're popping in here. So as I said, like he traveled all over the world, documenting native population, and they had really amazing teeth and really amazing physiques. Now, here we come into the kind of the why of that, and it's probably not, you don't have to be like have a PhD in quantum physics to really understand that, the people that when he first rocked up at these places, they ate from the land, so they were eating a diet high in minerals and vitamins, and he saw firsthand over a period of time that nearly everywhere where a Western diet was introduced to these populations, it had an absolutely devastating effect on their teeth, their gums, and their general health. So it was really significant what happened here. Now, when we start to compare these indigenous diets, these old diets with modern diets, we start to see some very serious clues cropping up as to what's going on. Now, I don't know who does all of these studies, but if you look around, there's a hell of a lot of studies that have been done on this, and you can spend time, if you've got nothing better to do over the weekends and stuff like that, which you probably have. Unlike me, I've kind of dived into this, so I've saved you the bother. And there's numerous studies that say that modern versus indigenous diets. So the indigenous diet has 3 times as many minerals and 10 times the amount of fat soluble vitamin. So let's have a look, and before we move forward again to more of what I'm up to here, just so we understand the dynamics of this, and how does remineralization actually work. Now, as I've said at the beginning of this, there's a natural loss of tooth surface and some minerals during a meal every single day. So due to the acid that builds up in the mouth. Now, no matter how much you try and get rid of it, doing all the things that we've just already talked about, there's going to be some. And it's kind of a natural process, so we need to understand what's kind of natural and what's kind of been added in there that's caused this unnatural situation to manifest in our Western culture. So we can then ask the question, well, how does your body compensate for this? Now, after a meal, saliva comes into your mouth and it carries all the minerals with it. So it's got all of those minerals, the trace and the essential minerals should be in the saliva. And those minerals get deposited back into the lattice of your teeth when you're not eating. So there's this constant demineralization and remineralization all day, every day. So if this process didn't happen, like I've said before, you probably, after about the age of 7, you probably have no teeth at all. They would just literally be like just washed away by all that, just completely worn away by all that. They'd have no minerals. And then that acid would just totally just dissolve and you have these little stalks, which, when you look at, as we're going to get onto what can happen when this process doesn't go well, I have seen that take place. So the big question here is like, how do you boost that remineralization? So where does the saliva get its minerals from? So the saliva, lo and behold, gets its minerals from your blood. So we're starting to look here, it's kind of like a very simple detective story, isn't it? Where you don't have to go very far to find the suspect. So if your blood doesn't have the minerals, neither will your saliva. So just eating healthy will not do the job. So, I keep saying this, just get that in your mind, that just seemingly doing all the right things won't necessarily do the job. And here's why. Because these days our soils are severely depleted of minerals. So in some ways we could say that cavities are kind of like the canary in the coal mine. They're showing up, and they're pointing to a bigger issue of what's going on, a larger issue of what's taking place. So it's a bit like a bank where you're only taking money out and there's no one putting any money in. So it's estimated that today you need to eat 5 to 10 times the amount as you would have done in the 1950s. Now, whoever's worked this one out, again, if you really want to get into it, there's plenty of evidence for this out there. Tons and tons of research that have looked into this. You don't have to travel all that far to figure out what's going on. And, some even say, and I don't know how true this is, but, if it is, it's pretty serious, that some minerals have declined by 50 to 80% since the 1950s. So back to what I'm doing. So this is what I'm doing. So, you could say, well, where are all the minerals? What contains the most minerals? And of course, it's vegetables. I mean, fruit and vegetables, but vegetables primarily contain the most minerals. So in lieu of this, I'm kind of eating tons and tons of vegetables, but specifically, I like to approach this and say, well, look, what foods are the most alive? What contain the most energy, the most electricity, the most charge? So I eat tons and tons of sprouts. Now, these are sprouted seeds, sprouted beans, broccoli sprouts. Just look it up, sprouting. I think it's Doug Evans has written a book called Sprouts or something. The Sprouting book, that's it. And it's worth getting a copy of that because it really goes into the fact that these things are absolutely jam-packed with vitamins and minerals. And it kind of varies from whichever sprout you're sprouting. I sprout a whole variety of these things, whole mass of different types of sprouts. And, sometimes our second bathroom is literally like a sprouting factory with just sprouts coming out everywhere. And, kind of, I hope my daughter's not listening to this, but in fact, actually, funny enough, my daughter was threatened to actually eat some sprouts the other day, but it's not going to be popular with kids, but so you have to kind of sneak them into things without them knowing. And it's kind of a bit sneaky, but it's kind sneaky, I guess. So they've got loads of essential vitamins, importantly minerals, and other things like fiber, antioxidants, vitamins A, C, K, folic acid. So sprouts can also have things like B vitamins, and importantly for us here, minerals like phosphorus and magnesium. So great stuff. The other thing that I eat a lot of is sauerkraut and fermented foods. So I actually, again, do this at home. You can look this up. This is super, super simple. So, I don't know about where you are, but where I am, you can go out to a health food shop and they're charging like £5, 5 UK pounds, which is a lot of money for a tiny little jar of sauerkraut. And it's kind of super easy to make. So there's so many tutorials online. You can go there. I just kind of spend an evening and, every so often get the ingredients, do a massive big batch of it and have all that fermenting again. So, you just got to set yourself up a little bit and have these things on the go. And you buy special fermenting jars, and that works absolutely great. So again, these things are full of minerals, iron, potassium, iodine, calcium, magnesium, manganese, sodium, trace amounts of phosphorus, on and on and on it goes. Silicon, boron, copper, zinc, sulfur, selenium. So all the kind of stuff that you need to get those teeth and bones in good shape. Now, because I eat so much of these other kind of green things, and I'll come on to the next bit, I don't do a ton of juicing. It's pretty time consuming, and I do the best I can. I juice whenever I've got the opportunity. So I juice a whole bunch of greens and then just down that. So I'm just getting as many minerals in my body as I possibly can. And another way that I do this, I take an absolutely ton of mixed green powders, and I make this myself. There's a lot of them already mixed on the market, but I actually like to source the stuff myself. So I use spirulina, chlorella, sea kelp and wheatgrass. That's the main ones that I use. And I literally make my own mix, and make sure I've spent some time, done a bit of research, and I go for organic. I look at the sources they come from and just try and get as clean as possible out of those. I mean, there are some issues I think people talk about with them, but you know what, I'm willing to kind of just take a little bit of a punt on those and just get as much of that good stuff in me as I possibly can. So like I said, I do my own mix, but there's, you can buy ones, there's really some really good ones out there. Athletic Greens is really good, mixed in with all the amino acids and all these different things that your body really needs to perform well on. And, just to add in here, of course, the thing that you also need to bear in mind, which at some point in recovery is kind of gut health. So, it's no point in consuming all this stuff if you don't absorb any of the vitamins and stuff. So, that's another thing, to just be aware of. That is a factor in all of this. In all of the things that could go wrong, there is a factor in gut health. So just so you're aware of all of that. But these things are really packed full of some, this is kind of like the powerhouse. And what I do in the mornings, my wife and I have a big glass of this every morning. We mix other stuff in with that. We MSM powder, a bit of bit of Lugos iodine. I mix cacao, organic raw cacao in with it, a bit like Brian Johnson's mix, but I was actually doing it before Johnson, so suppose I can claim to fame on that. I'm not saying he's nicked it off of me, of course, but anyway. So yeah, big fan of all of that kind of thing. You know, anything that's got loads of minerals that can help us along the way is absolutely ace. So having told you all of this, I suppose you're saying, well, okay, so this should totally do the job. Yep, this should do the job, right? Well, sadly, no. So kind of like it looks all up and good news, doesn't it? And then you kind of really look at it closely and no, that's not the whole story. So within all of this, there's a missing elixir, and that missing elixir is vitamin D. Now, why is that the elixir? So let's just get into this a little bit. Like the man who discovered vitamin D, Professor Sir Edward Mellanby. I like Professor Sir Edward Mellanby. What a great name. So it's vitamin D is the most important factor for producing well calcified bones and teeth. If I can say it, I need a new set of teeth to pronounce teeth. So 99.5% of the body's total calcium is in your bones. So vitamin D helps absorb and utilize calcium and phosphorus. Without vitamin D, only 10 to 15% of calcium and 60% of phosphorus are absorbed or are able to be used. So there we have it. So here's another what I'm doing, and I'll come on to that a little bit, but I just want to plant this as a kind of seed, and you'll probably kind of see where I'm going to go with this. But I'm going to move on. So I've just dropped that in there. So you can see that vitamin D3 drops miraculously appeared on the screen. So here's the big question. Vitamin D. Now, how much of it do you need? Now, this is really interesting because like when I started to get into the research on this, there's a lot of stuff, weird shit going on with this. Now, the recommended dose is 1,000, 2,000 IUs of vitamin D per day. And by the way, your body naturally produces it by just from going in the sun. So sunlight, and we'll come on to that, but just so if anyone's not entirely sure what the score with vitamin D is, it's connected to sunlight and our ability to absorb sunlight and for that to synthesize the production of vitamin D. However, more recently, so the Sir, whatever his name was, I've forgotten his name now, Sir Edward Mellanby, in more recent years, this guy has appeared on the scene, a Dr. Holick, and he's turned as an expert of vitamin D, and he's come into the mix, and he's telling us actually you need 50,000 IUs a week, which is kind of 6,700 a day, more or less, But in looking at these studies, and if you go a little bit deeper, you have to be careful with this. And in a way, you have to start looking and following the money when it comes to these studies and research. So when if you want to delve into it, when you start to look at these things, it's always a great idea to see who is, who's funding the study, so it might have this eminent person's name on the front page, but, who gave this person the money to do the study? So with this whole vitamin D thing, I'm not going to go into detail with it. There's no point here now. I just waste loads of your time. But I went into it myself, and I wasn't 100% convinced by the people that had actually funded the research on vitamin D and come up with that, huge amount. So, for most people, just getting out in the sun may not be enough. and especially if you live in a northern climate like I do. So what I do, I supplement in the autumn and winter, and I just check in and see how I feel in other times. I've got used to how my body feels around this issue, which is like a sensitivity to stuff. It's kind of listening to your body rather than factoring it out. Now, you can, of course, go and get yourself tested, but, these tests are kind of snapshots of things. And, I guess they give you some kind of information that you can use. And if you go and get tested and it comes back very low, then, of course, it's worth looking into upping the ante with the supplements. Now, when I do supplement, as I went back to, you saw that thing flash up on the screen, I get a high quality vitamin D supplement. And I think it should be made from lanolin. I can't even say it. So, in fact, I'll look it up here. Yeah, I think it is lanolin. Lanolin. There you go. I've finally managed to say it. So, you kind of just need to check in with this. And when I do supplement, I take around about 400 to, we just, that, although it says 500 on that dropper thing, I just kind of take tiniest little amount. You don't need much. And, just to top myself up. But really the point we're looking at here is that vitamin D is crucial, and it's crucial for so many things, and we need it. And of course, they've made us all terrified of going into the sun. And of course, if you look at the anti-aging thing, then they say, oh, for goodness sake, never go in the sun, stay out of the sun, cover up, and all of this kind of stuff, which to some degree, you do not want to get completely singed, red every time you go in the sun. And you do need to be aware of, certain skin types. If you're very fair skinned, it will have an impact. But again, the whole mechanism, we could go into this and get lost down a rabbit hole, is very complex. We're not just one thing, we're an incredibly magical biological system, an unfoldment of biological magic with so many different factors. So of course your diet, whether you exercise, your state of mind, the environment that you spend time in, all of those things will have a factor on what happens when you do certain things. Now, over the years, I've lived in the tropics. I've probably not been aware of this in terms of my own health, and I've spent tons of time in the sun, and I do have some sun damage to my skin. And, that has caused some aging effects. However, it's like, I'm not trying to kind of eradicate every single wrinkle or whatever. It's kind of like saying, well, look, we're moving through life, we're having a living experience, and some of that experience may be beneficial to show up on our face. So there is this kind of thing where, if these people suddenly, if everyone suddenly just stops aging at 18, then we have to redefine, how we deal with people. You don't know whether you're dealing with an 18-year-old or whether you're dealing with an 80-year-old. So that's going to cause some kind of issues, maybe at some weird point in the future. But for now, I think the main thing is that to just be aware. I use a natural mineralized sun thing that sunscreen that I've actually made myself for a fraction of the price that they're charging in shops and stuff like that. And it's pretty easy. If you look it up, you can use all natural substances. It really does have a good effect, and it nourishes your skin as well. And if for anyone that thought I had problems with my teeth, starting from a very early age, I've had huge problems with my skin. I had to deal with those, find all kinds of ways to bring my skin up to a level that is non-reactive to pretty much everything now. I can put most things on my skin without them reacting, but I choose to put everything natural. Everything comes from nature that I put on my skin. It's very important. So this thing of just being aware of vitamin D, being aware of just like I said, get tested if you need to. But, I think just if you live in these kind of northern climates, if you live where there's not a lot of sun, the other correlation is that, if you kind of lead these indoor lives and you just don't go outside and get any sun, then maybe it's an invitation to just go out, get a little bit of sun on your body, be sensible with it, but don't hide away from the sun. Okay, so having said all of that, what else am I doing? So here's a few other things that I'm doing along the way. Like I said, this protocol is it's a lot, but I'm heavily invested in making an improvement in what's going on. So I'm willing to spend the time and the energy and do the research that I need in order to try and get the best possible result. The fact that I don't have, Brian Johnson's, massive team of experts analysing everything. I have to do this myself and find out myself, try everything out myself. And, really, I'm the test bed of it all. I can tell within myself if something is having a good effect or not. I'm tuned in with my body. I understand how my mind works. I've spent a lot of time and energy getting to this point. So the other thing that I do is I use magnesium oil. So I spray magnesium oil on my teeth and gums twice a day. Now, why magnesium? Well, it helps regulate muscle and nerve function, and it, to create and support protein, DNA, and bone health. So it makes sense to have that thing. And again, we're told that most of us are magnesium deficient, again, because of the depleted soil, depleted magnesium levels in the soil, etc., etc., etc. So no harm in getting it in there. And, most people spray it on their bodies, or, spray it under their arms or spray it on injuries and stuff like that. But, there's no harm, it's totally fine to use it orally. And I started off paying a fortune for this in pharmacies for these tiny little bottles of magnesium oil until I found out that you could order an absolute massive bag of magnesium crystals on Etsy for next to nothing and just make endless amounts of magnesium oil. So I just mix it up myself. There's plenty, again, if you go online, you can there's tons of tutorials on YouTube just telling you how to make your own magnesium oil, which is great. Now we start to get into slightly more kind of weird and wonderful territories here, and I'm willing to go anywhere in order to play the game at a high level and see how that affects things. So I'm also dabbling and using sound frequencies. So I'm using what's called the solfeggio frequencies. And that is something, you'll see in the image, they're kind of tuning forks. And I bought these off a good friend when I was living in Bali. They're absolutely amazing, these kind of things. And you see they've got that kind of bauble thing on the bottom. Now you hit the tuning fork and you can put that on different parts of your body, and that resonates into the body. And what I do, I use these different frequencies. Now I could go miles into it, but there's different frequencies that they say. Now there are a set of 9 electromagnetic tones that are reputed to have the power to heal and raise consciousness. So they form the basis of many ancient sacred music traditions, dating back as far as the 8th century, such as Gregorian chants and also Indian Sanskrit chant. So there's a big kind of lineage of again, a bit like the Ayurvedic thing with the coconut oil. There's a whole lineage of how sound frequencies, we can use sound frequencies to bring about healing in the body, healing, regeneration, well-being, all of these kind of things. So what I do is that I play these things and I actually put them on my face, my neck, my jawline, just so those frequencies, just that bauble thing on the end, just put that on under my front lip and then on the side, my jaw, under jaw. So just trying to get those frequencies, the particular ones that are for healing and regeneration, which you can look up. There's tons and tons of great information on solfeggio online that you can look at. And I have a very good friend called Ashira Hart. If you look her up on Facebook, she's a really amazing sound person, sound healer, sound generator, sound explorer, adventurer. And she has tons and tons of great information. And also you can buy pre-recorded audios of these frequencies, and you don't have to have the tuning forks. You can literally just sit down and let these sounds come into you from different angles. Just sit in front of if you've got reasonably high quality speakers. But I actually prefer the actual tactile, visceral sense of it, so you can feel what's happening on you. You put it actually on your body, and they're really amazing. So one way or another, whatever happens, you kind of feel better as part of the process. And in a way, coming to the end of this now, we are light beings. So the other thing that I do is that whenever there is some sun, miracle in the UK, that we don't often get a lot, although we did get a lot of it last year. So that was something. But it takes a long time to get cranked up here. But whenever there is some sun, I literally just go out and poke my tongue out and pull my mouth open and literally expose my mouth to the sun and let the sun get on my gums. I feel the sun kind of bathing my gums and my mouth and my tongue, and actually even going down going down my throat. So there's light going down my throat. I'm aiming myself right at the sun, of course with my eyes closed. Don't keep your eyes open while you're doing this, folks. So have a think about that too. Now, the other thing that I'm also doing, when I said like going kind of beyond Johnson with all of this stuff, is that, and I will come on to this in another presentation, which is going to be about breathing, breath, oxygen, and all of those things, and how they're going to impact our ability to regenerate and, experienced enhanced aging, as if it were, transform that whole process. Now, mouth breathing, if you look into it, is a big culprit in causing problems with our oral health. And again, there's lots of research on this, and it's seldom ever mentioned really. And in our culture, because of, again, this diet thing, if you look up the guy that I mentioned in the beginning of this whole thing, when I was just sitting on the chair, this guy Mew, who invented this thing called mewing, he talks very much about how the Western diet has affected the actual infrastructure, the actual structure of our jaws and our nasal passages. And James Nestor talks about this in his book Breath. And he, again, looking at indigenous populations that eat off the land, eat their native diet, and have perfectly open and functional breathing cavities, nasal cavities to breathe with, and practice mainly nasal breathing. Now, a lot of the runners actually will breathe through their nose even when they're running. So if you've ever tried that, that is not that easy with kind of our Western mechanisms in place. So one of the areas where during the day, I become aware of myself breathing through my mouth, and I'm able to bring some conscious awareness to that and keep my mouth closed. At night time when we're sleeping, it's a little bit more difficult, and that can be where a lot of damage is done when we're sleeping with our mouths wide open, breathing through our mouths at night. This kind of has the effect of drying out our mouths, drying out all of that saliva with all the minerals that is remineralizing our teeth. So it means that we're missing out on that whole process. So I actually use things, my wife and I use these. I mean, it ain't sexy, let me tell you that. But, you can give yourself the odd night off to have a little bit of fun here and there. So the point is, I use these things called sleep strips, and what they do, they're just very light adhesive things. You just put them over your lips and they just keep your mouth shut at night. So you're forced to breathe through your nose. Now, over a period of time, you start to naturally breathe through your nose anyway. So it's kind of like a good thing to do. So as time goes on, you might not need to use them all the time. You just use them here and there whenever you kind of sense that you've had a night where you're breathing through your mouth, and then the next night you just put that right. But in the beginning, it's kind of a very good habit to get into, to get these things on, and it's nowhere near as bad as you think. Now, you might, obviously if you have allergies and stuff like that, it might affect you in that sense. So you just have to be aware. You don't want to be kind of like suffocating at night. So just again, check in with yourself, see where you're at. But if you can address this thing of mouth breathing, it's going to be a whole another dimension to add to helping to regenerate not only your teeth, but your whole well-being too. So I'm going to kind of close it off there, and I hope this has really helped you to see the possibilities here. Like I said, I'm a student of this. I'm experimenting all the time, and I'm going to continue with this because I am seeing some promising results. Now I'm going to see how far I can take it, and of course, as new things come along, as new ideas, as I come across new things, as people watch this and they share stuff with me and they say, oh, have you done this, or maybe you should think about doing that, or maybe not. I'm completely open to shifting where I'm at in order to get a better result. So, thanks for watching. Please don't forget to subscribe, like, and share. Press the notification button so you'll know when new video crops up. And thank you once again for your time, and all the very best to you. And may your teeth be sparkling and your gums be radiant.